Array is a special type of variable that can store multiple values in a single place. JavaScript has a lot of built-in methods that help us transform and manipulate arrays. In this video, I'll show you how to master JavaScript arrays from basics to pro level. Let's dive right in. Now here I have 3 arrays. The first one is numbers, which is an array of numbers 1 to 7. The second one is users, which is an array of objects. And the third one is fruits, which is an array of string which holds each item is a fruit. Now in arrays, each item has a specific index, and arrays use zero-based index. So for example, we can console log and say numbers, and then inside here we can pass in the index, for example 0, and we save that. Now I'm going to run this, and you can see we get 1. So in the numbers array, the index of the first element is 0. So always remember that arrays use zero-based indexing. We can also get the length of an array, and in the length of an array, it doesn't start with 0, it starts with 1. So for example, we can say numbers dot length, and that should get us the length of this array, which is 7, and that means we have 7 numbers inside here. Now let's look at some of the built-in methods that we can use to transform and manipulate arrays. The first method is push, and push helps us add items inside of an array. Even though we used const to define our array, our arrays are mutable by default, so that means we can mutate them. So we can use the push method to add items inside an array. So we can say numbers, and then dot push, and then here we can pass in the item we want to push. So for example, numbers is it's an array of numbers, so we can just say 8. Right, now we can come to the second one and say users, and then we can say dot push, and then this is an array of objects, so we can create another object. We can say name slate, and we can say the age 25, yeah. And we can say fruits dot push. There we can push banana. That. Now at the very bottom, I can console log all the arrays. Then start the first one, which is numbers, to copy and paste. The second one is going to be users, and the third one is the fruits. All right, perfect. Save that. Clear my terminal to run this once again. And if I expand this, you can now see that our array, the first array which had numbers 1 to 7, now we have 8 here which has been added. In the users array, you can see we have the user slate with the age 25, and in the last array, which is our fruits, we can see banana has been added. Now the second method we're going to look at is called pop. Now pop removes the last item inside of an array. So for example, we can go ahead and comment all these out, and inside here we can just say numbers, then dot pop, like that. And then we can also go ahead and say users dot pop, and we can say fruits dot pop. Save that, and if we run that, we can now see that in the array of numbers we don't have 7 has been removed. So remember, it went from 1 to 7, and 7 has been removed. Now the second one, we only have one user, which is John. That means Mike has been removed. And in our fruits array, where we had apple and a mango, we only have an apple now. So pop removes the last item inside of an array. So the next method is shift, and shift is the opposite of pop. So pop removes the last element, but shift removes the first element. So we can change all the pop to shift, and we can see what shift does. Save that, and we're going to run this, and now you can see the first element was removed. For example, here we don't have 1, and here we don't have the user the first user, which was John, we only have Mike, and here we only have Mango, which is the second element. That means Apple has been removed. The third method we're going to look at is unshift. Now remember, we used the method push to add an item at the end of the array. Now unshift adds an element at the beginning of the array. So for example, I'm going to comment this out, and we're going to say numbers dot unshift. Now here we can say we want to add 0, right? And then we can also say users dot unshift, and here we can say name and say something like Doe, and the age of Doe, we're going to give him an age of 30 years old. And the last one is our fruits array, which we're going to say fruits dot unshift, and here we're going to pass in strawberry. All right, now let's run this, and you can see now, let me expand this terminal. You can see we have 0 here, which has been added at the beginning of the array, and in the second element, which is the second array, which is our users, you can see we have Doe with the age of 30 has been added at the top, and the last array, which is our fruits, we can see strawberry has been added at the beginning of the array. So that's what unshift does. It's the opposite of push, where push adds elements at the end of the array, and unshift adds element at the beginning of the array. So with those methods, we can mutate arrays. But what if we don't want to modify the original array? That's where non-mutating methods come right in. Now let's look at some of the non-mutating methods. And the first one is going to be map, and I'm going to comment that one out. Now map is a higher order function, and what map does is that map loops through each item inside of an array, and it applies a callback function on that item. All right, so for example, we can say here, we can say numbers dot map, and now here we can have access to the individual element, so we can refer to it as E, and here we can have a callback function, and what we want to do, let's say E, and then we want to multiply it by itself, so we want to get the square of that number. Right, now I'm going to save that. I will run that, and we have to store this in a variable, sorry, so we can say const and say squared equals to, and then numbers, and then also here we can now say squared, like that. So I'm going to remove all these other console logs. Now remember, map returns another array, so if we run that, you're going to see that we have 1, where 1 times 1 is 1. We have 4 instead of 2. 2 times 2 is 4. We have 9. 3 times 3. We have 16. 4 times 4. 25. 5 times 5. 36. 6 times 6. And 49. 7 times 7. So map loops through each element, and on each element is going to apply this function here. Now next is filter. Okay, so what filter does, it returns an array of elements which match a specific condition. So for example, here we can say const, we can say new users equals to, and then what we want to do, we want to get to use our users array, and we can now say filter. Inside here we can have access to each individual element, and on each element we want to check if element dot age equals to or is greater than 30. So if the age here, if the age of a user is greater than 30, we want to return that user. All right, now inside here we can now console log our new users. That if I run that, we can see we have both of our users because their age matched are greater than 30 years old. So if I come here and I say 30, I'll say something like, if the age is less than, then I'll say 20 years old. When 30 years old, say 30 years old. So if the age is less than 30 years old, then return that user. If we run that, we're going to get Mike because his age is less than 30 years old. So to be more precise, we can add an equal sign here. So we say if the age is less than or equal to 30 years old, then return that user. Now we can run that, and you can see we didn't save here. Save that, and if we run that, we should get both of the users. Now let me go ahead and add another user. I'm going to copy this. And instead of copying, I'm going to use the push to add another user here. I'm going to uncomment that out. So we will push a new user, and I'll put him age, I'll say maybe 35 years old. Right. Now if I run that, you can see we only have one user. We only have two users, right? Now that's filtering. Next, we're going to look at reduce. And reduce, what reduce does is that reduces an array to a single value. But this is much more efficient with numbers. So we can say something like this. We can come here and say const, say price equals to numbers dot reduce. Now here we can have access to the previous number and the current number. Then what we want to do is that we want to take the previous number, then we plus the current number. Then here we can just say something like 0. And then here we can console log the price. If we run that, you can see we have 28. So that is we took all these numbers and we added all of them. We reduced all of them to a single value. Now the next one is called slice. And this simply means that we instead of getting the whole array, we can slice it. Let's say we want to get some numbers from the index 0 up to the index 4 here. So to do this, we can do something like this. We can console log numbers, then we say dot slice, and here we have to pass in the starting index. So we can say 1, and the ending index we can say maybe something like 4. Right, now we save that and we run that. Now you can see we only have 2, 3, and 4. So we have extracted a part of an array instead of getting the whole array. Let's say we just want a part of it, and that's how we use it. We use the slice method there. Now next, we're going to look at searching and finding elements. So we can have a big array. For example, an API. Most of API sends the data in an array format, and let's say you have like 100 items inside there. So there are ways in which we can search an array to find specific elements. So for example, in our fruits array here, we can search for maybe for a specific fruit. All right, so to do this, I'm going to go to the console log here, and then I'm going to say console log the fruits, and then I'm going to say dot includes, and then inside here I should pass in my search element as a string. So I want an apple. Does this thing contain an apple? And see, we have true. So that simply tells us that that array contains an apple. If I say banana, does that array contain a banana? You can see we have false simply because inside of our array we only have mango and apple. But if I push a banana inside there using the push method, and you now see we have true because this banana was added even though we didn't have it initially. We use the push to add it, and then once we check if that banana includes down here, you can see we have true because that banana already exists. All right, now next we can use the find method. Find returns the first matching element. Now with find, we can say const user equal to, and here we will use our users array. Say users and then dot find. Then inside here we can have access to the individual element, and then we want to check if the element dot name equals to, and then now here we can console log the user. There we go. We run that. You can see we have Mike returned here simply because inside of our users array we have Mike as the second element here. Right, so that's what find does. Now if we pass in a value, let's say we pass in something like Ken. Of course we don't have Ken inside there, so what we will get is simply undefined. So we can use the find method to find a specific element inside of an array. Now those are some of the important methods, must-know method that every developer should know. If you found this video helpful, consider liking and subscribing for more JavaScript tutorials.